hey, do you have to comply with the CSRD? Because then you're exactly at the right place. This is the CSRD podcast, and today I'm talking to Michael Sharaga, who's part of the CSRD team at FUCHS Group. I really believe that those conversations with companies that already did the first step in the CSRD journey can prove super valuable to all companies that still have to do it. If this sounds interesting to you, enjoy this conversation. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Perfect. You're part of the CSRD team of the FUCHS Group. Is the CSRD the first touch point that you have with sustainability?
It's not the first touch point because I have an audit background. So we know that in my old job, we had to also audit sustainability information. But here at FUCHS with the CSRD, we face many challenges, many new challenges. And yeah, so it's quite a big task for us, but we are on a good way.
Okay. What type of sustainability data did you had to audit or were you working with before, just roughly?
So I was auditing annual statements, financial statements, and sometimes these annual statements also include sustainability data such as energy consumption, such as other activities. So not that much, but just a rough overview.
Okay. And now you're working at FUCHS Group. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the group actually does? I assume it's a lot of things, but just a brief overview.
So FUCHS is a German-based lubricants manufacturer based here in Mannheim in Baden-Württemberg. And mostly we manufacture lubricants and greases and other related products for customers in various sectors, such as the automotive industry, such as the wind industry, such as other industries with metalworking and so on and so forth. So it could also be the case that when you drive a car or when you go on a train, that our products are also included in the trains and cars. So yeah.
Okay. And regarding this, looking at the CSRD, do you already have a gut feeling what areas of the CSRD are then particularly important to your group?
So with the CSRD, we also have to do this so-called double materiality analysis, and we are already finished with the process. So we started very, very early. So we started with all of our preparations for the whole project last year in July, so July 2023, because we knew it would be a lot of work. So with starting the project early, we also started the double materiality assessment, in which we identified what ESRS topics would be relevant for us, and we are still have not 100% concluded the topic because we still are in discussions with our auditor. This has to be done in close cooperation because everything has to be signed off with the auditor. But
Yeah.
as it looks like, certain standards such as the affected community standard and also the standard with regards to biodiversity might not end up as material for FUCHS, but we're still in
Okay.
clarification for that. All the other standards regardless, so climate change, pollution, water, marine resources, own workforce, business conduct, workers in the value chain. These all will most likely end up as material for FUCHS. So we will have to
Okay.
report on those.
Yeah. Super interesting. And so nice that you were able to start so early with the process. How big is the sustainability team that you have at FUCHS?
So the CSRD project here is not allocated or located within the sustainability function, but within the governance function. So my role is specialist governance here at FUCHS. And however, we are still in close cooperation with our sustainability department. So our sustainability department at the moment consists of around 4 to 5 people, roughly. And they will also do quite a lot of work with regards to the environmental standards. However, the overall coordination of the whole project is here within the governance function. It was just a management decision here at FUCHS to allocate it to the governance functions. I know that other companies have it within the reporting function or even within the sustainability function. So there are different ways to allocate the topic and the project within a company. Here it's within the governance function.
Okay. And did the FUCHS Group do any other sustainability reportings in the past already?
Yes, so we did some voluntary sustainability reportings. The old ones, as far as I know, the aim was to also include certain GRI topics and standards into the sustainability report. It was not audited, but certain GRI standards have been included in there, but not fully. So it wasn't fully compliant with GRI, but certain elements have been included. But as soon as we understood that CSRD would be the main how can I say, the main star of sustainability reporting for European companies, we switched all of our resources to focus on CSRD instead of GRI, for now at least.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. Do you have any other sustainability goals in parallel to the CSRD?
Yes, so there are central allocated sustainability goals from our sustainability department with regards to CO2 emission reduction. So at the moment, we are CO2 neutral within our own operations, and the aim is to include this with regards to upstream and also downstream, so throughout the whole life cycle.
Super cool. Okay, let's focus on the CSRD a little bit more, or what, like for me, particularly is interesting, like the selection process of the CSRD. So can you tell us a little bit more about the criteria that you had when selecting a solution that can help you with CSRD?
So for us, the most important aspect was to select a solution which is also user-friendly. Because here at FUCHS, we have sister entities in more than 50 different countries, and all of these sister entities would also have to be onboarded onto the CSRD software. So for us, it was important to have a software that is first of all user-friendly, but also that includes all functionalities that we need to steer and control the whole reporting process centrally from the group holding here in Mannheim. So you can imagine that when you are an employee working in Vietnam or let's say Thailand, for example, who has not come close into contact to CSRD topics in general, it will be very tricky and very hard for you to suddenly do all of the reporting for Germany. So for us, it was important that the software is easy to navigate and easy to use, but also that the software has key functionalities that are also then audit proof. One example for this would be the concept of a four eyes principle. How can you ensure that the data that you have submitted into the software is then also approved? So you leave an audit trail. So when the auditor comes in and asks us, how did you ensure that the data is correct? We can say there's a four eyes principle in place. We require attachments, for example. So these are the type of functionalities that we were looking for.
Okay. Yeah, no, sounds super good. Like the two criteria that you already mentioned. Were there any other must or should criteria that you were able to define before selecting a solution?
So for us, we also included a few considerations, such as when you submit data, it would be nice to see prior year values or prior period values, also as a sort of additional plausibility check. So this was for us very important. But then it was also important with regards to the authorization and rights concept. So again, with the four eyes principle, but also that when you sign in as a user from one of our local affiliates, such as in Vietnam or Thailand, that you only see those aspects that are relevant for us. So what we did was when we had the CSRD starting project, we tried to allocate our global functions such as procurement, sales, research and development, sustainability, human resources to the individual ESRS topics and disclosure requirements. It was not always very easy because sometimes you have multiple different functions working on one disclosure requirement due to the different requirements in the data points. And the way we try to do is we try to mirror these functions in our local affiliates, meaning that we also collected responsibilities and names in Vietnam, in Thailand, and so on and so forth for those users who then would use the software. So for us, it was very important that we could manage and we could set up the visibility in the software itself, meaning if you work as a human resource guy or girl from Vietnam or Thailand, that when you log in into the software, you would only see the relevant points that you would have to report within the human resource function, and you would not have to see the overwhelming other disclosure requirements of the whole CSRD and ESRS, because otherwise it would just get scary, and it's something we would want to avoid to make it as user-friendly as possible.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. Can you guide us a little bit through the selection process? Because as you just said, like with such a huge value chain, I can imagine that there are like a lot of like different plays taking part at the same time.
Yeah, so when we tried to select the software that we used right now, we had a few interviews or a few demo versions with other softwares, where we also asked these questions. For us, it was important that we would find a software through which we could also influence a little bit the design of the software itself, but also the design of the functionalities. We did not want to just get a software and then use it as it is, but very often there would be some custom configurations required to serve our purposes. So with the software that we selected, we found out that when we would have certain wishes with regards to functionalities, those wishes sometimes could also be implemented and done through the software company. So for us, this was important, the close contact and interaction with the software that we use.
Okay. And in the process of like the selection of the CSRD solution, what was like the main challenge that you had to overcome, or what was like something that was quite complicated in your journey so far?
Since we started the project quite early last year in July, the landscape of softwares was not so good. So there were many solutions emerging, but none of them were like fully perfect or full of perfection, because also the lawmaking was still in the rough process, so it also was not 100% finished. So we selected the software also a little bit on a gut feeling, where we would feel that our wishes would be heard, and where we would also think that the cooperation that we would have with our consultants within the software company would be of a good cooperation. So the software that we selected, Envoria, we already had a close cooperation with them with the European taxonomy, because they did some consulting work for that. And when we also saw that they had a software solution for the CSRD reporting, due to our good experiences with them, we selected ultimately Envoria, which is a small startup from Munich, because the software was very user-friendly, and also we had good contact with the respective contact people from Envoria.
Perfect. Yeah, that would have been my next question. Okay, so you decided with Envoria, like, what other reasons did you like base the decision on? Like you already said that you worked with them beforehand, which is like super valuable. But like having the offer, like what stood out to you? What were like advantages that you saw in their solution offer?
So the software is designed very nicely. So if you look at the interface of the software, then you get all the key information, all the key data in a good and planned structure. And also all of these functionalities that I mentioned before, such as the 4 I's principle, such as creating different user roles, such as including, let's say, different and difficult group charts when you are a big group, such as us, in order to collect the data in a structured way. So all of these aspects have been important for us. Also with Envoria, what we could combine, what was also very interesting for us, would be the calculation of the corporate carbon footprint. So before Envoria, all of our corporate carbon footprint for the emissions calculation was done externally. So we collected the data through a SharePoint solution, and then we sent the data to our third party who would calculate our emissions. But with Envoria, since they also have an additional module on corporate carbon footprint, we could do it in-house, which also is a project that's happening right now. And Envoria also has a module on the European taxonomy, which also is very interesting for us, which we could also include in the future. So various different things, all closely related to CSRD and the ESRS. And for us, it was just a good package. And this is why we decided to go with Envoria.
Okay. And you did the EU taxonomy part with Envoria before and then decided to work with them on the CSRD as well, right?
So with Envoria, it was not the software that we used for the EU taxonomy, but more consulting services that we have used. And after our good experiences with the consulting services for the EU taxonomy, this was also extended for consulting services for the CSRD project, which also includes the Envoria software.
Okay.
So for us, the benefit was that we get it all from one hand, basically, because otherwise, if you would select another software, you would have another party with regards to the implementation, and then you would still have to have a technical consulting service partner with regards to the topics of the ESRS. So you would have to navigate and deal with 3 different parties. And for us, it was a good solution to get it all out of one hand with Envoria.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. But this means for the CSRD, the software you use now for the first time. So you didn't had a sustainability software in place before, right?
No, we didn't have a software in place before.
Okay. So now from your point of view, because like you started quite early and you already did the first step, and I'm talking to a lot of companies that still have to do the first step. Looking back at the step that you did so far, what were things that were maybe like more difficult than you expected, or maybe even you had steps where you were like, oh, this is actually easier than we expected?
Mm, to be very honest, nothing has been so easy. So it was
Okay.
quite a tough process. This is also one of the reasons why we started so early. But I think the biggest issue was that there are many uncertainties and many topics and issues within the CSRD and ESRS still remain unclarified. So as you might know, the FRAC, they are releasing question and answer documents in which these questions are going to be clarified in the future, but this is still an ongoing process. So we have to now to set up a system to get into the data collection, because we have to release our report for CSRD in 2025 already on 2024 data, and we still don't know 100% what data points and what specific disclosure requirements are then actually relevant, because it's still an ongoing process. There's like still no final answer. So it's there's a lot of it's very dynamic, and often enough it's of course very hard to tell this to our employees, to those who will then be affected by the data collection, because they assume that the whole process is finished and the whole process is done, whilst there's still so many uncertainties. So even though we are now setting up the system and everything, in about a half year's time or so, we have suddenly so many more data points that we would have to report on. So this is one of the biggest challenges for sure, since it's still an ongoing dynamic process.
Yeah, I can also imagine that like the legislation changing makes it really difficult to like look ahead. So have you already been able to make any plans for like as soon as you have the CSRD reporting, or is so far everything like focused on doing the reporting and making sure to deal with all the legislation changes? Or have you already been able to look at like certain measures that you want to implement once you have the reporting to then like to accelerate the CSRD journey further?
Well, for now, for us, it's important to get it as audit ready as possible. So we are in close cooperation with our auditors, who will also, of course, not support us on our journey, but tell us if we do something wrong, so we can adjust the whole process. But it's just very challenging, because so many different departments are involved, so many countries are involved, since we are a multinational group, and then ultimately, since the report that we publish also requires an audit opinion, we of course hope to get an unqualified audit opinion, so that everything is signed off by our auditor, that everything is correct and fine. This is the most important thing for us as a stock listed group. So this poses the biggest challenge, because often enough the auditors also do not have clear guidance and directions on what exactly they are going to audit, because it's still such a new topic, and the lawmakers are still in the whole process of getting it into the German national law. So this is also not finished and completed yet. So as you can see, you try to navigate in deep waters that are sometimes rough and where you don't see the end.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that, and in a lot of conversations that I have, like the same message emerges, that it's just like very challenging and like difficult to navigate that. But yeah, thank you so much so far. Do you have any other things that I might have forgotten to ask, or is there anything else where you think this is valuable to share for other companies that are also faced with the CSRD and with all the challenges that come with it?
Well, I think the last thing I can say is that even though it's challenging, I'm sure we will manage to get this done, and it will all be good. So through all of those who are also working on CSRD, don't be frustrated. I think it's challenging for all of us, but we will all manage to do well, and we are all in the same boat. So it will all smooth. We
Nice.
will be very smooth. Yeah.
Nice. I really like a positive outlook there. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Michael. I really appreciate you taking the time and helping other companies to also manage with CSRD.
Thank you for the conversation. Thank you.